Can we bring up on stage, please, the stools? Excellent. Where's Mike? I hope he's here somewhere. Oh, there you are. Fantastic. Mike, come on up and join me. I'm now going to have a chat between for the next sort of 20 minutes or so with Mike Kenner. Mike is a co-founder and CEO of Fuzz.Wuzz, based out of here in Thailand. And Mike's presented at the conference before. But what's interesting is two things. One is when you were presenting before, you were presenting as Fuzz.Wuzz, and now you're part of Lifeful, or Lifeful Connect, which is based in Japan because you did a deal with them. And secondly, what I want to explore, because that deal brought together a transaction engine with a portal, with a lead generation engine. And I think one of the things we've talked about over time is in getting closer to the transaction, or can portals leap into transactions? And you're living the dream in this whole process, or the nightmare. Well, we'll call it the dream at the moment. So first of all, can you give us an overview of Fuzz.Wuzz and sort of a little bit of the history, so one's brought up to speed, and then an overview of the deal that you did, and what's the environment that you're working in now, having both demand generation tied up with a transaction engine?
So Fuzz.Wuzz originated in Phuket, which is a small place in Thailand. It's a small island. And we're effectively an agency that was moving towards technology to help us facilitate transactions. So we was kind of the starter push of tech-enabled brokerages appearing, especially in this market. So we scaled nationwide to the core regions that really mattered in Thailand, where there was good unit economics. And we got to a point where our scale was effectively limited. And we asked ourselves what was actually limiting ourselves building this business any further. The main driver in some of these markets is specifically leads, where the portals had a lot of access to them, and inventory. They were the two main drivers of the market at that period of time. So there was a company called Dot Property, which Lifeful Connect in Japan or Spain acquired, which owned assets all across Thailand. And we thought that the mix between a portal and a tech-enabled brokerage coming together would be the perfect combination to facilitate growth in this market. So effectively last year, we both came together as one company, we combined, we merged, and the outcome, which is what I sold to Lifeful, was what would happen if we put a portal and a transaction engine together. What would be the outcome? So this is kind of, that was the premises of the history and the reason why we did the transaction itself. The journey's been slightly different to what the expectations were initially, so that's what we can kind of discover.
Okay, so let's dive deep on this. And just to be clear, there's also in the region, because you're not just only in Thailand, you're also in Dubai?
Correct. So our remit currently is Thailand, the UAE, and also Indonesia.
Okay. Now, in those three markets, because there's also the Matula and Trovit,
correct,
which are lead generation tools, vertical search engines, operating in those markets as well, and owned by Lifeful.
Correct.
And you're getting leads from them as well.
Correct. So we own all the assets in all the regions that we operate in. So,
great.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've now got the playpen. We understand what's happening. So then let's sort of dive in a bit deep. You do the deal, you come in, you've got the transaction engine, great experience in getting deals done. You've got Dot Property, which is so funny. The bit of history, Dot Property was created by Ben Neve, who's in here somewhere. I think Ben's over there. Yep, I can see you. Way back. I remember sitting with you in Hong Kong, talking about, it must have been 10 years ago, maybe longer, about that, and then seeing the journey. It got bought by the Matula Group, and now it's ended up being with you. So there's a lot, and you were at the Property Portal Watch conference way back then as well. So there's a lot of connections that occur in the conference. What's gone well? What's worked really well in bringing demand generation together with transactions?
Sure. I mean, the obvious one is portals have a huge amount of inbound leads coming through from an organic presence. So what worked very well is that we now have access to a much larger lead pool. That's obviously the no-brainer, the given. You can replace the inventory of your own inventory and receive all the leads as long as you have the inventory mix. So getting access to leads was very, very easy in terms of that went really well. With obviously getting that, there's huge challenges that transaction engines and portals have to combine, which is, it's not about how many leads you get, it would be the quality of leads you get. And this would always be the agency portal argument. We want more leads, the leads are rubbish. That's what always the agent conversation. We sit on both parts, and we can see some of the challenges you have from mixing portal leads with agency leads, because historically, the way this works in emerging markets is the whole market's a dumping ground. You could go on, and we spoke about this before, so we've inherited portals where you have inventory which is all outdated, and a lot of it's just rubbish. None of it exists. A huge amount of this, and especially under the Matula and Trovet aggregators. So getting access to leads on inventory that's not real, or getting access to leads on inventory where the competing inventory is not real, really affects how the leads progresses and transacts. So that's been you know, yes, we get more leads. The challenge is, are these leads actually valid? And
Okay.
yeah.
So when you then start to look, so another question before we go on to that. In terms of bringing these various, because they're various businesses. One's you have the Matula Trovet, which is, you know, very small teams, very tech driven.
Yeah.
Then you've got the Property World, which is more of a traditional portal advertising business. Then you've got your tech-enabled brokerage, which once again is probably heavy on people.
Yes.
To do transactions and close out, because, you know, selling real estate is still a face-to-face business. Has there been any sort of cultural clashes in trying to bring these three different types of businesses together?
Yeah, massive culture clashes. I mean, it happens to the way we operate. For example, Lifeful Connect is very much a data-driven business, it's great for what they do, but the data for them is the most important part. The data will tell the full story. When you're looking at the business that we're in, it's 50% data, 50% intuition. I mean, we've been in the market operating. There's stuff the data cannot tell us. And if you go following down the data trail, you end up sometimes coming up with the wrong assumptions and the wrong conclusions. And then we have, obviously, a Japanese culture, a Spanish culture, and then a Thailand culture, all mixing together. And then you have a property portal culture and a transaction culture fighting each other. Because as soon as, obviously, FasWas came into the business, you know, the assumption was the portal would get killed off. That was never the full intention. But obviously, so it's been challenging in mixing data-driven cultures and intuition-driven cultures and different country-driven cultures. It's been a challenge, is the honest truth, and we're working through this, yes.
So now we're a year on, more or less about a year?
Yeah.
We're a year on, right? So then we got this is one of these beautiful test cases where you can actually now look backwards and see if the theory and reality align or are misaligned. So let's start looking from, and there's a question come through from traffic. So the questions come through, and you can probably put the questions up, please. Is how do you make sure that FasWas, Property, Matula, Trovet, etc., don't cannibalize each other's traffic, or does it even matter?
Yeah. So I mean, I understand there's different portal strategies. And I think you have the Rightmove strategy and the main strategy will operate under one brand. They have Rightmove.com, and they have huge direct and organic presence. The strategy that Connect employed is we have loads of brands. I mean, in Thailand, we've probably got 20 to 30 different brands we're operating on. And they have same content or different content all shifting. And so we're never really exposed to an SEO movement, because if one goes up, one goes down, that's usually what happens. So we don't really care. And we realized that the average person goes onto multiple portals to you know, go through their journey of looking for a house to rent or to buy it. So our sense was that we would own all the portals, you know, all the options. And with the tech that we built, it allowed us to do it. So I don't think that they cannibalize each other. We just look at it as a network. Doesn't matter where the leads come from, as long as they come through our platforms, they come to one centralized place, that's access to lead flow that we need. So, yeah.
So from the demand side, bringing it all together or operating independently, it doesn't matter.
Correct.
The outcome is the same. You're still getting a high volume of leads coming through.
Yeah. The only bit we suffer from is brand. So you have that, you know, with having Trovet and Matula and Property and FasWas and Hipflat and Thailand Property and many, many more. Who are we? Which is a real challenge we're going through at the moment.
So it's an internal cultural
and
issue.
To consumers.
Okay.
Who are we? You know, Lifeful Connect is not known, or Lifeful in this market. They know the brands, you know, the Amazons, the domains, the REAs, you know, and we have, to our consumers, this is part of an issue that we have at the moment. So that's a challenge of having a multi-network platform-based lead generation service.
Okay, so then we look at what's been the impact on the Property business, because the Property business was an advertising portal with, you know, getting revenues from developers, from agents around the Thai market. What's happened to that? Did the agents go, you know, sorry, you're competing, and disappear? Or was that sort of a fake fear?
No, so, I mean, the honest truth is that when we sold the company, we have a limited time period. And I sold this on, we could take a company from 1 to 5. So the question was, how do we go to those 5 as quick as possible? Now, we know that the portal business will never generate enough revenue in this market. So the whole thing was, we'll shift it all to transaction immediately. We'll just kill off the portal. That was the immediate hypothesis. The honest truth is that that probably wasn't the right move, so we never did it, because we wouldn't be able to cater for the flow that they had. So what we did was, the agencies, it's a bit of a noise, but very little. A lot of portals are scared of this, but the actual reality is when you do it, there's not much that happens. So what we did was, we shifted the prices up 4 times. So 4x on the prices of the portal.
So this is advertising pricing?
Correct. And then we churned off a huge amount of agents. We then took their lead flow, and revenue stayed exactly the same. So we have the same revenue on .property. We have half the leads doesn't go to them to the portal anymore. We've got half the team. So it managed to stay the same capacity. So the portal still exists. All the traffic still exists. It's just, in these markets, we don't need 5,000 agents paying us $1. That's the challenge. So it will never move the needle enough.
Okay, so if I understand this correctly, because I want to get this clear, right? You said, look, I'm going to operate in this co-opetition environment. I'm going to allow those that can pay and will pay to stay on the site. Now, how do I determine those? Well, jack up the price, because the legitimate agents and developers who want the traffic, value the traffic, will stay. The long tail, you discouraged from using the portal because it became too expensive or whatever. And so the lost revenue from the long tail is replaced by a smaller number of people paying a lot higher price, so you stay net neutral. That asset becomes now profitable because you need half the number of people to run it.
Correct.
Okay, than you did before, because you're not chasing all the long tail of micro issues.
Yes. That
are basically full of headaches and no upside. They're all loss-making at the end of the day. Okay, that makes sense. And then all that extra traffic that would have gone to that long tail, but still exists,
goes to transaction, and then we can grow through that model.
Right.
And it's worked well for us in general. So the problem is we only want professional agents on the platform. There was a strategy before me, which was not implemented by the previous management, where just get everyone on, $1, and but you would have to be in the market for 10 to 20 years to ever see that yield, because everything has to grow. So for us, that's not the strategy that we wanted to employ, because we're a public company, we want to maximize our outcome.
So then you've got your transaction engine, which is Fuzzwise. You're getting leads from all these sources. Are all the leads the same quality? Did the leads coming from the portal convert at a higher rate than other lead sources that you have?
Yeah.
How's that all played out?
Yeah, it's been challenging, because the actual Matuda and Troverts, the actual end product that these companies produce as leads, the quality is low. I'm being honest, we own these assets in these regions. The more localized the product is, the better the quality of the lead becomes, the more responsive it becomes. And then you've got the mix between very much a heavy international market. I mean, you're all in Bangkok, you see how the place is being built up. There's a huge foreign direct investment being made into Thailand, and that's driving a huge movement in the property prices. So then you have domestic, which is low-end traffic. I mean, if you go into Thailand, rural Thailand, the houses are barely able to be sold by anyone, mind about an agent. So the problem of the aggregators that we have is that they aggregate across the country, but we want focus points. The difference between Australia, where you probably transact in every part of the country, versus Thailand, we're isolating off key regions and not going for a nationwide strategy. So a lead is not a lead. A lead for us is a lead in the area and a price point that we want, with X amount of qualification process that goes into it. So yes, there is a challenge with the leads of having this.
Have you pushed qualification of leads back onto, say, the portal and the other channels?
So now we're implementing all the Fuzzwise processes onto the portals. So when we took over the portals, we realized that the Fuzzwise had a lot of post-lead qualification processes going on. It was asking a lot of questions, profiling. We've had to really implement a lot of this over to the portals, but we haven't fully done that. I mean, we're working with so many different tech stacks. It's, this is the problem of having all these different portals that you end up rolling up. You have Matura and Trovit and this one and that one, and you end up with one update on 8 different platforms. Takes 8 times the time. So that's another challenge that comes with doing this type of business. Yeah.
Okay, so there's different quality of leads coming in.
Yeah.
Now, when you were operating independently versus operating internally, so with access to the lead sources directly, have you seen a jump in the overall outcome of the business?
So, no, not specifically, no. So, the question would be that 80% of our revenue still is generated from FazWaz, which is the main platform we're running. Yet we own the portals that have 10x on the traffic flow. So this is an issue we're trying to work through and solve. And when they don't want to solve it for us, I mean, if we solve it for FazWaz, we solve it from the market because everyone has access to our lead flow anyway. So we're going through this at the moment, trying to understand how do we make these leads more valid. And I think that we don't have the fully answer yet.
Right. So it sounds like at first blush, the opportunity feels good, right? Hey, I can own the lead source. I can do. However, when aspiration meets reality and the implementation's going through, there's actually a lot of micro steps that you need to do to actually achieve that real outcome.
Yeah, correct. High level, the hypothesis, putting the two together made total sense. It still makes sense. We just didn't realize it wouldn't be as quick as we would like it to make sense. So
yeah, everyone loves everything done overnight. I was going to say teenagers, they're no longer teenagers, they're 20 plus, and everything has to be instantaneous.
Yeah.
But I also think that, and this is related to this question that's up there, which is by Ed, which is sounds like a lot of headaches. Any regrets?
Yeah, no, I don't. I think, listen, there's outcomes for all businesses. I mean, we was a startup. We aspire to eventually look for an outcome. So I don't think there's no regrets. I think it's just challenges. And it was somewhat of our naivety of when you move from say a $10 million business and pushing up towards a $50 million business, the challenges become much different. Yeah.
Okay, and I think one of the things that we don't have patience in this industry. We actually want things to work pretty quickly. We want the outcome, but sometimes you actually have to work hard at this, right? Do you chip away, little bit by little bit till you crack the code about what really works?
So, I mean, it depends on strategy. I think coming now, I'm from an entrepreneurial strategy, and you go to a corporate, especially, the one that's been around for quite a long time. So we like to make rapid changes immediately. And there's a different structure that doesn't like to do this. There's no right or wrong, but for us, we want the answer today, and we'd rather take bigger risks in the market, and that's actually what we're doing. So, mate, we're taking big plays and bigger risks to move the needle quicker, as opposed to gradually getting away. So, I think for us, we would like to say we're not trying to chip away, we're trying to make real impactful moves. But again, that's probably what everyone says in our situation, and is really still just chipping away.
Now, one of the interesting lessons learned from the Matura days, when especially around SEO, was that you've got to do a lot of A/B testing. Okay, and the interesting thing is you're now working with all these lead sources that you have control over. So you now have the capacity to do A/B testing all day, every day, to see if you can get that incremental conversion rate from leads.
I agree on the conversion rates. I mean, SEO is a black box for all of us. Even for Matura and Trovit and the whole of the Connect network that's made these acquisitions, I don't think anyone fully knows how it works, right? We just make assumptions. But the good thing is, once you have any traffic, you can test different scenarios. I mean, right now we're testing forced logins. We're forcing everyone to log in on our platforms. We're not letting them view properties for free. Let's see how that goes. Will some of our clients react? But we only affect one of the brands. We don't affect the whole site. So, yes, it is okay to make A/B testing because of that model, yes.
Now, you've got an interesting thing here, right? You talked about before how multi-brands, it's a bit of a headache and so on, but there's a lot of benefits to it as well. A lot of this A/B testing, you've got traffic to HitFlat versus different traffic to .property and so on. You just try different approaches.
Sure, but if you ask me, would I rather have a Rightmove, or
we'd all like to own Rightmove,
or that branded one and combined? And that's the question we're asking now. Would brand consolidation make sense and form a new brand or existing brand in Thailand?
Or just rebrand everything.
Correct, because the consumers, because we're in the transaction as well, the consumers want to associate with something, and that's a challenge.
What is the strategy in the UAE?
So the UAE has been, an interesting one for us. We kind of ran before we could walk. So we thought, okay, we're doing well in Thailand. It's be very easy to roll out in any country. That was the assumption we made. The reality is that we went into the Dubai market without having really any leverage on any of our assets. So the aggregators wasn't strong there. We didn't own any portal assets. We just liked the market because you go to Dubai, there's huge commissions flying around. So the strategy of the UAE was to roll out exactly what we did in Thailand, but unfortunately, we've gained through the lessons. I've been watching this portal conference where people say the strategy doesn't work everywhere. And we just sit there thinking, yeah, no, it does. Yeah? Turns out it doesn't, and we can't just roll into our market. So we're still going through that strategy in the UAE. It's more of a portal-driven strategy as opposed to, driving traffic to our platforms itself. So we're still working through the UAE at the moment. Yeah.
Okay, so that's an interesting question, right? What has worked in the UAE and what has not worked in the UAE that worked here?
Okay, yeah. So in Thailand, it's very much, if you have the buyers, you're winning. It's a buyer-side driven market, mainly. I mean, inventory is still important, but nowhere near as, whoever's got the leads is winning. In the UAE, it's a supplier-side driven market. It's all about the sellers. And we have a non-exclusive market and now an exclusive market in the UAE, where the only thing that really matters is who has the inventory and who has the exclusive. The buyers come to the inventory. So I think that's been for us, and it's so simple, which makes me still quite stupid sitting up here. It's so simple, but we got it so wrong at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's we learned that lesson at the REA Group, and actually a number of other businesses I've been involved in. Is we take our inbuilt prejudices and think that no, what works here will work somewhere else, and then your feet hit the ground. And you're suddenly looking around and going, wait a second, this doesn't quite look the same, smell the same, and I've now got to run quickly to catch up to the people who are already operating in the market and have learnt this lesson.
Correct,
over time.
and that's a big regret of mine. It was always, we looked at the larger companies and we wanted to get after them within a year. And realistically, in hindsight, it's never going to happen. So because of that, we made interesting moves, which were probably not really interesting, but actually bad moves. So I think that, have a realistic time frame on where you're going to get to, and we didn't. We were very aggressive, we were very bullish, and from that, it's been an interesting lesson that we've had to kind of learn for ourselves. But hopefully, on our new market expansions, we don't do this again in the same capacity.
So one other question about the UAE. When it's a supply side problem rather than a demand side problem, how do you go about securing exclusive content when there are already established players in the market?
It's hard, and listen, this is not a technology play. There's no technology that solves this. The only way to get exclusive inventory is for agents to speak to owners. We can do a telecall center, but it does not work. So the honest truth is, and the only way you can secure lots of inventory is by hiring lots of agents. By hiring lots of agents without doing any transactions, you have a large cost base. So you're in a kind of a catch-22 position. So the inventory problem in the UAE is one we're trying to work through, but it looks like we would either have to have a huge agent force or nothing, to get this done.
So when you think of market strategy, entry strategy, are you better off taking what you know, which is really the demand side, and being really good at managing demand and owning the demand, and I use the word owning in inverted commas, and finding other markets that applies to, than going into a market that may look attractive but is different?
Yeah, I think we'd have to go in where we're strong. So now we're looking at, for example, Indonesia. So the UAE, we had no real reason to be there. We just decided we wanted to be there. When we look at Indonesia, we have a few million traffic. It makes sense. We've got a strong demand side there, and we can work out, but we're not going to be like, oh, we're going to go down the transaction route only. We might look for an alternative solution to enter this market as opposed to forcing our model through into a different country.
Okay. Any other questions? Because now's your time to ask them, because we're going to wrap up in a couple of minutes. With all of this in mind, and you were to roll the clock forward 5-10 years, do you see this as being a large transaction business with multiple front ends driving quality leads that are being qualified on the front ends?
Yeah, I think if I roll forward 5 years, I would imagine that the thing is we're all reasonably small, even our company, you know, relatively to when I hear some of the numbers that Malcolm will chuck around about. So the companies have a long way to go. I see this being in emerging markets. I don't see this model which I hear about with this REA domain working over here. I think Thailand's, like, the emerging markets are very unique. The example is on payments, they didn't have cards. They went cash. Everyone had cards. They just skipped it and went straight to QR. So they skipped the whole evolution. They waited and had cash for so long. So I think that's what's happened in some of these established markets. They'll probably wait for the next evolution and time will go there. So I believe that transaction is the only way forward for these markets specifically.
Okay. Excellent. Mike, thank you very much for sharing those thoughts. Very interesting to see how Fuzzwuzz has changed over all the years. I remember first chatting with you, it's got to be good 7 or 8 years ago maybe, when we were at Matula and we wanted to buy your business and you didn't sell it. Probably a good move by you for doing that. Although you did end up with Matula at the end of the day, sorry.
Yeah, reverse circles.
There's this magnetic pull that occurs. And it's fascinating to see how that small business in Phuket has grown now into be a very good, very strong growing national player here, well, in key markets at least, and with, you know, now putting your feet outside of Thailand and other markets. So well done, and thank you very much for sharing your thoughts about the journey of Fuzzwuzz and working with demand-side portals like .property.
Thanks, Simon.
Thanks,
Thank
Mike.
you. Thank you.
Excellent.